You are now listening to
Chakras and Shotguns.
Welcome to Chakras and Shotguns, the podcast that guides you on a journey of spiritual development and personal preparedness. I'm Mik, a marketer, shamanic healer, and prepper.
And I'm Jenn, a former lawyer, yoga teacher in training, and lover of human design.
Have you ever heard of Kundalini energy? What about the divine feminine? Maybe you've thought about taking a Kundalini yoga class, but you didn't quite know what you were getting yourself into. Today, we're exploring what Kundalini energy is, how to work with it, and when to proceed with caution.
One quick note, we are entering spring, the season, very soon on March 20th. And with spring, it's always a good time to clear out the stale and the tired and welcome in the new. And you can do both of those things with us, with Mik and Jenn. You can book a Reiki session with Mik and release what is no longer working for you, or book a tarot session with me and get some insight on where you really need to pay attention in the next few weeks. You can also finally book that human design reading that I know you've been meaning to do and see how you can enter spring more in alignment with your human design. You can find all of those opportunities for readings and sessions on chakrasandshotguns.com/readings. I have been personally feeling like things were about to shift this spring, Mik, just for like us and our family. But if you're also following astrology, a lot of planets are moving and we're going to feel it in the collective. So it's a really good time to book a session with either Mik or myself. So go do it.
Absolutely. All right. Do you want to get into some breath work?
Yes. So in my yoga teacher training, I just got through the first week, and one of our required readings was Brene Brown's Daring Greatly, which I'll probably pull from a lot because it's an amazing book on vulnerability and allowing yourself to be seen, and how that can be kind of scary because you may feel rejection or betrayal or ignored, right? And so this breath work, I really wanted to focus on our heart chakras. And yeah, let's get into it. So find a comfortable seat if you can. Always feel free to lay down. I love to lay down. And let's take 3 deep cleansing breaths together. Maybe before we get started, put one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart. That always makes me feel a little bit more grounded. All right, inhaling in through your nose, expanding your belly. Filling your lungs up with air, maybe feeling that air inflate your lungs in your back. And let's exhale that breath out through your mouth. Let's do that again, inhaling in through your nose. Feeling expansive, feeling the air push onto your hands where you're holding your body. Holding that breath at the top. And let's exhale out through your mouth. Last breath together. We're going to inhale in through your nose. Just focusing on that breath, letting everything else fall away. Holding at the top. And this time, seal your lips, close your mouth, and exhale that breath back out through your nose. Now that we're aware of our breath, I'd like you to focus your attention on the center of your chest and envision in that space a green ball of light. Green is the color of the heart chakra. What does that light look like to you? Don't rationalize it, just what initially comes up. Does it feel small? Does it feel dim? Does it feel bright? Allow yourself to feel the feeling of gratitude for that light, no matter how dim or bright it is. Gratitude that you allow yourself to love, to be loved, to receive love, to give love. And imagine this green ball of light begin to grow and expand. What emotion are you feeling in this moment? Do you feel safe? Do you feel seen? Do you feel exposed? Just allowing yourself to feel those emotions as they come up. Not thinking through what it means. And allow yourself to bask in the energy of your heart chakra. I'd like to finish this breath work with an affirmation, specifically for the heart and for allowing ourselves the space to be vulnerable, which is how we develop deeper connection with others. So you can repeat this affirmation out loud or silently in your head, but the affirmation is, I am safe, I am seen, I am worthy of love. All right.
Dope. I love that, Jen. Let's move along, though, to our main topic.
Okay.
What is Kundalini energy? I got to admit, the first time I heard about it, the word itself, Kundalini, it sounded a little freaky, like it might be related to the Kama Sutra or something. That's what I was thinking when I first heard it. So that was, first thing that came to mind when I heard it.
Mik and Jenn at night.
Hey.
Well, actually, Kundalini, no. Seriously, Kundalini is the Sanskrit word meaning coiled. And in Hinduism, Kundalini energy is the divine feminine energy that resides in the spine, coiled like a snake at the root chakra, the very base of your spine. So Kundalini energy is a big deal in Hinduism. It's a very important concept because it's the ultimate life force energy and it's the source of creative power and spiritual gifts. So, this is it. Like, it's the mother. Like, this is the energy, right? The concept of Kundalini energy is described in the Upanishads, which are a subset of the Vedas, which we've talked about before a little bit. And these are among the oldest texts in Hinduism. The Upanishads are philosophical texts that explore the nature of reality and the human experience.
Yeah, I think we talked about the Vedas specifically and how they talk about the chakra system.
Makes sense.
Way back when. So I want to dig a little bit more into divine feminine. This is a phrase that gets thrown around a lot that I think a lot of us are all trying to get more in touch with our divine feminine energy, but we don't really talk about what that really means. So let's do some definitions around both divine masculine and divine feminine. So generally speaking, the divine masculine refers to qualities and attributes that are traditionally associated with masculinity, such as strength, courage, logic, and action. These qualities are often associated with the sun and are seen as active, assertive, and goal-oriented. On the other hand, the divine feminine refers to qualities and attributes that are traditionally associated with femininity, such as intuition, compassion, nurturing, and receptivity. These qualities are often associated with the moon and are seen as passive, receptive, and nurturing. Divine feminine and masculine does not refer to gender, even though it could seem that way. These are complementary energies that exist within all individuals. The goal is to try to balance these energies and integrate them to achieve a state of wholeness and harmony.
Yeah, you'll also see a parallel with yin and yang, or yin and yang, or the yin yang twins. Why did we let them get away with that?
I don't know.
Somebody should have whispered in a damn ear that was inappropriate. But anyways, yin and yang is part of Chinese philosophy. And in the yin yang symbol, the black side represents yin, the feminine, and the white side represents yang, or the masculine. However, if you're looking at the symbol, each side also contains a small circle of the opposite color, which represents the interdependence and interconnectedness of these energies. So it's, we need them in balance, but they're always intermingled. Yin energy is associated with qualities such as, again, just like the divine feminine, intuition, introspection, receptivity, while yang energy, which mirrors the divine masculine, is associated with qualities such as action, assertiveness, external expression. And in order to achieve balance and harmony, it's important to integrate and balance both yin and yang energies. So again, just like the concept of divine masculine, divine feminine, the yin yang symbol is not intended to reinforce gender stereotypes, but rather to acknowledge the interdependence and complementarity. Is that a word? Basically how they complement each other of seemingly opposing energies. And one other note on the gender aspect, because I think there's a lot of worthwhile conversations about gender. There are a lot more people coming out. Do you come out? A lot more people who are non-binary now. And so sometimes this can rub people the wrong way. And also, your knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, the man's all about action and I'm just gonna be about nurture. I can be about action too. I'm about that action boss. Like, it's not about that. But I have heard some people try and find other ways to refer to this like masculine feminine energy in a way that doesn't play along with.
Yeah. So like even what you said, like yin and yang, right? That's one way in which people will refer to the energies as opposed to saying like masculine and feminine, right?
Yeah. I've also heard, I don't know if I love this one. I think I ran this by you one time and you were like, no. And it was like a container that's full of water, and like the container, which is a little bit more rigid, more structured, would be the more masculine energy, and the water, which is more flowy, which can be a little bit more, it fits the container that it's in, is the more feminine. And you're making that face at me that you made when I first told you about this, maybe like a year or two ago, and you were like, it's a no for me, dog.
I don't know how you can use that to like label it. You're the container energy, I'm the water energy. Like
yeah,
it doesn't.
But people are trying. That's the point that I was trying to
I
make.
got you.
We are everybody's just trying.
I get you. I just tell you why it was difficult for me to like use that language going forward.
Everybody's so creative, So no.
So talking a little bit more about that, let's talk about how people oftentimes will lean too much into one or the other, right? So starting first with leaning into too much divine masculine energy and what that looks like. So I think in the lexicon that we see in popular culture, toxic masculinity is kind of the first thing that comes to mind. And that's that like overly macho, overly masculine, overly physical, kind of disconnected from emotional energy that we see a lot, particularly with Western men. And this like idea that feminine or emotional energy is weakness and that we as men can't embody that, right? And I think even in women in this society, there's like this kind of corroboration of some of those same stereotypes that I see.
In terms of how they interact with men?
Yes.
Okay. That women also don't allow the space for emotions.
Exactly.
Okay. And vulnerability, which is how in my breath work, that's
Mm-hmm.
how we build community,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Yeah. That we all play a part in some ways.
Absolutely. I think also corporate America, just like how it's all set up. And I think there's a larger kind of conversation around capitalism and how it shows up within the structure of corporate America. Right. So I think corporate America as a culture, it can be inherently masculine energy a lot of times. There isn't a lot of room for compassion in how we treat people. And like I remember I was working as a consultant and we would talk about people as resources. Like that was the word we used. Like I need another resource on my team. And like I wrote that in like a resume, and I had this like coach who was helping me apply to grad school, and she was like, don't talk about people as resources in your resume. I'm like, that's like how consultants talked about it. It's like, that's how I knew it.
And it seeps in.
Yeah. So.
No, that resource has a name. He has hobbies.
Exactly.
And even when you think about like, you know, in my former life as a lawyer for a retailer, just like earnings calls. And it was like, oh my gosh, I used to just do my head in. Like, we increased this by this percent and this many bips. And, you know, it was all about like the numbers and the financials. And it wasn't like, hey, we created a better experience in our store by doing X. We would kind of get into that, but like nobody really gave a fuck about that. Like they were really focused on like, but are the profits profiting?
Oh, and cost cutting, right?
Oh God, yeah, cutting costs.
And like talking about it in terms of we save this many dollars, right? And if you kind of do a double click on that, it's like we fired these people.
Yeah, and the people that were left, you had to take on their roles, and now their hair is falling out. And oh, weird, we have so many incidences of cancer. And why are we paying so much to cover people's insurance? Because you're not taking care of your people, because you see them as resources. Yeah.
Why don't we move on and talk a little bit about people leaning too much into divine feminine?
This is interesting. So one example would probably be lack of boundaries, which is a thing. I think also women, I think anybody can struggle with this, but I think, you know, how we talk about conditioning and how society conditions us, that lack of boundaries can really pop up with women of helping everyone else before you help yourself. You know, self-care is like you're supposed to be nurturing and giving, and it's this like very nurturing existence, and to do the opposite of that can feel very selfish, and that will pop up as lack of boundaries. Zero order or organization. You know, just I always think back to this example of when Mik and I first got married and he was asking me how I budget, and I was like, intuitively. And this is intuitively like before like spiritual awakening, Jen. Like this was just me being like, I just feel when I've spent too much. And I almost gave my new husband a heart attack when I said that. He was just like, excuse me, what? Now, on the flip side, this man has color-coded spreadsheets to keep the budget. And we have since somewhat met in the middle. But, and it was working for me. My intuition was on, okay? Your girl had savings. And I had paid off my loans, okay? So, you know, pat myself on the back for that. But you can see how someone's like, I don't know how the day's going to go. And I'm just... well, maybe I shouldn't do that voice, but I don't know how the day's going to go. I'm just going to lean into it and just like wander around or whatever. And it's like, girl, it's the first. The day needs to be going with you paying rent. Like you can't just be out here wandering around. So there's that. Also, emotional dysregulation, right? It's good to be in touch with your emotions, but are you super moody? You feeling a lot of mood swings? When you feel a new emotion, you can't handle it. Like you just let it sweep all the way over you. So that can be difficult.
Just to reiterate, so I'm glad you corrected your voice, because again, this isn't about gender. And I wanted to point out the first kind of example that came to my mind was when we were watching Married at First Sight last season in San Diego, I believe they were in. And there was a lot of conversation around Justin's character.
Oh, yeah.
And how his emotions were very dysregulated.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make the argument that he was operating too much in the divine feminine kind of throughout that season and how he was approaching his relationship. And I think that led to a lot of problems they were having. Like he was very dysregulated from an emotional standpoint.
Yeah. And to give his partner some grace, I think she came off as hard because she wasn't allowing this man to be in touch with his feelings. But he wasn't, I struggle to use the word control, but like he wasn't able to properly manage and feel his feelings.
Yeah. So I think these cases that we talked about are some of the extremes. And really the point is that you need both of those energies. You can't be too far on one end of the spectrum.
One thing that was interesting when we were preparing for this episode is I found it harder to come up with examples of too much divine feminine energy, because I think that particularly Western culture is about the masculine. It's like, make more money, get a bigger house, have a bigger truck.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I shouldn't do the voices again. These voices, they get me. But I think that Western society doesn't make a lot of room for us to be out of balance favoring the feminine side. Like you're just like, whoa, like they probably hospitalize you probably. I mean, just to be honest. And so what you will see is that in spirituality, new age spirituality, there is a lot of push for inviting in more divine feminine energy. And arguably we need it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me personally, it is one of the driving forces around my spiritual retreats that I do with men. I think there's just a lot of conditioning that has happened over several generations where there's kind of the quote unquote correct way for men to behave. And that doesn't really include dealing with emotions that aren't like anger or like sexual joy, basically. Like if we're not in one of those two buckets, it feels like we're not allowed to express that, or at least we haven't been in the past. And I think that's starting to change. And I just wanted to kind of be a part of that progression and create spaces where men can heal from past trauma and create room for emotions to be expressed. So yeah, we try to get that divine feminine energy flowing.
Yeah. I'm very proud of you. But we're going to get back on task. So back to Kundalini energy. I'm just kidding. Back to Kundalini energy. That coiling of the energy also alludes to the fact that this energy is somewhat dormant. It's asleep. And so in Hinduism and some yogic practices, the goal is to do something with that energy, preferably awakening it and moving it from the root chakra up to the crown chakra. And when Kundalini energy is awakened, it is said to rise all the way up through the chakras or energy centers along the spine, leading to a powerful spiritual experience. This experience is often described as a state of heightened awareness of yourself and the universe, deep inner peace, and a sense of unity with the divine source, spirit, God. The thought is that to fully awaken your Kundalini energy, you reach spiritual enlightenment, which is supposed to be like the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about that, right? You're talking about going from the root, and we've talked about what the root represents, right? It's like that tribal chakra. It's, very much in the physical. It's like these very physical, secure safety needs. And even like the sacral chakra is all about like this reproduction and like passion there, right? And as you move further up, you get toward the crown chakra, which is really your connection with God. And I think about how in our Christian upbringing in the church, it was all about moving away from the flesh and getting closer and establishing this deeper connection with God, right? And even in my metaphysical Bible study that I've been going through, we've talked a lot about how mountains in the Bible represent this increasing your consciousness. So Moses going up to the mountain to receive this download of the 10 Commandments from God was all about like, it's a metaphor for going up the chakras, right? Increasing your consciousness. Jesus goes up a mountain. The ark, it stops on a mountain, right? And all of these again are metaphors of just like increased consciousness.
Yeah, and another way of describing the experience of your crown chakra, and like you talked about, like reaching the divine, is another way of talking about that is reaching cosmic consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So like raising your consciousness as self to reach cosmic consciousness.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
So let's get into this whole like awakening your Kundalini energy. What does that really mean? I know when I first heard about Kundalini energy, there was like a lot of kind of like weariness around it. Like it was like, oh, like don't. First, it sounded freaky, like I said at the beginning, right? But then when I like heard a little bit more, it was like, oh, like if you do it wrong, you can mess something up. Like there's all of this like kind of gatekeeping around it, and I was like, I'm staying away from that. I'm cool. Like, I'm gonna go meditate. Like y'all do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there's some spiritual topics that people are like, hold up, wait a minute. You gonna fuck something up if you mess with that. And I think that shuts down exploration and curiosity. Like you can look into something without doing anything, right? But what is really funny about that wariness is that when you really dig into it, some of the things to do to awaken Kundalini energy sound very familiar. So, yoga and meditation. No one would say that that's dangerous in the sense of you're going to awaken something and just, mess something up. So regular practice of yoga and meditation can help to awaken Kundalini energy, and Kundalini yoga, which we'll talk about a little bit more in this episode, is a specific type of yoga that is designed to help awaken this energy. Pranayama is just breath control. You practice that in yoga. Anytime you take a yoga class, and we do breath work in every episode, so that's probably also a form of pranayama. It's just about awareness of breath and controlling your breath. And so there are different techniques that you would probably practice in Kundalini yoga or in a type of meditation to awaken your Kundalini energy. Some of them are like alternate nostril breathing, which I think we did in a breath work in some episode. So we've definitely done that. Mm-hmm. Breath of fire, which is like really quick breathing and it builds a lot of heat. I've done it in vinyasa yoga classes just to build heat in the body. And then I ended up like sweating my ass off, but I didn't feel like I was about to like go into a psychotic break after, but it was, something that I've done before. And Ujjayi breathing, which if you've ever taken a yoga class, is how you are supposed to breathe. It's about constricting the back of your throat. You kind of make the seashell sound as you deeply breathe in and out of your nose. That is very common in all types of yoga. It's a very important practice in yoga. No one says don't take a regular yoga class because you're going to go cuckoo. Like, that's fine. So, another way to awaken your Kundalini energy, chanting and mantras. So, repeating sacred words is believed to activate that energy. Mantras like Om and Sat Nam are often used in Kundalini yoga. And these are mantras sometimes in the studio, the yoga studio that I go to here, we open with Oms rather. But it's short and sweet, maybe 3 at the top, 3 at the end, and you're on your way. And energy work, practices like Reiki, acupuncture, acupressure can help to awaken Kundalini energy. And these practices work with the body's energy centers or chakras, helping to remove any blockages and allowing the energy to flow freely. So when you go through this list, each of these things sound pretty familiar, pretty tame. We've done some of these on the show, like I said. Mik is a whole Reiki practitioner. Book a session with him. Like, what I think the nuance that you're often missing when people are like, this is dangerous, you should do it with a practice practitioner. I agree with that, but I think you're talking about the intensity of what you're doing. It's not about, oh, you can't meditate, oh, you can't do yoga because you might wake your Kundalini energy up. I think if you're doing something super intense for like a lot of time or like super frequently and you're not really taking any breaks, that you could hurt yourself. So just with everything, moderation, right?
Yeah, I think, you don't want to go from 0 to 100 real quick. You know what I mean? Start off slow. Let's approach it with respect,
Exactly.
Build your practice slowly. let's talk a little bit about how, if you don't, come at it with some caution and you don't treat it with respect, some things that could potentially happen. And I think this is where some of the weariness came from that I, felt when I first heard about Kundalini, because people were talking about like some of these things. So like, one, physical symptoms. You could experience a range of physical symptoms if you jump to, quick into Kundalini awakening. Those things include muscle spasms, tingling sensations, and even seizures in some cases. These symptoms, they can be uncomfortable or scary, especially if they are unexpected or really intense. From a psychological perspective, Kundalini awakening can also have some challenges there. You might unlock some really intense emotions, altered states of consciousness, and potentially spiritual crisis. These can definitely be overwhelming and, could require some support from like a mental health professional or a spiritual guide. So, this is all if you jump in too fast or try to be too intense with it. So, again, word of caution to slow down. You could also experience some unbalanced energy. If, you go in and you try to do this too quickly or without proper guidance, it could lead to just your chakras being all out of alignment. That could lead to all types of physical, emotional, or mental health problems. And again, may require some ongoing support to resolve. You could also be doing some spiritual bypassing. We talked about this before on previous episodes. Some individuals may use Kundalini awakening as a way to bypass some deeper psychological or emotional issues. This can lead to a superficial understanding of spirituality and may ultimately hinder your personal progress.
So I think the takeaway would be, make sure you know like maybe what your contraindications are, right? If you have history of seizure, maybe, or like breathing issues, lung issues, holding your breath could be a problem. That might be something you want to consult a professional about, like a actual physician. I actually, from time to time, take this class at my yoga studio called Psychic Development. And I think it is about psychic development. It is. I do think the title is a little clickbaity. Like, it's a little like I was in that same instructor's class earlier today, but it was just a yoga class, and he said he was going to have this class that night. Someone's like, oh my gosh, what's that? He goes, it's a secret. You have to come. So
he's a marketer.
Exactly. But that class there were no physical poses. You're just sitting on a pillow. We were doing a lot of breath work exercises, and I left feeling very buzzy. Like, I felt like I had like a glass of wine, maybe an edible. I felt like I came home and I was just like, oh, I feel good. I felt tingling sensations, but I'm used to those in meditation, so it wasn't frightening for me. So I typically feel tingling sensations in my third eye and my crown chakra. And it's just kind of giving me some more awareness that I'm maybe a little bit more open. So that's how I experienced it. But the first time I took it, I was like, oh, this shit pops. Like, so I went up to the teacher and I was like, this is amazing. How often can I do this? And he told me no more than twice a week. He said, you're really not supposed to do these practices. These are like Hindu practices, right? Sanskrit words, mantras, the whole kit and caboodle. And he was like, you're only supposed to do this like twice a week, because if you're doing more than that, you can go a little cuckoo. And I said, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So again, like the intensity, the frequency, like I think that's what's really important, just being mindful about that. And I don't even do it every week, but it's really, really cool if you start to explore that. But just proceed with caution and care. And I think this is why one of my passions is about being in your body, because you may think, oh yeah, I can meditate, whatever, and your body is like, danger, danger, and you don't listen to your body, and then you fall out. So make sure you're paying attention to your body. Go slow. All of that to say, we talking about people falling out, having seizures, crying all alone on the bedroom floor because they done awoken up their Kundalini energy. Why would someone do this? We kind of talked about spiritual transformation, spiritual enlightenment. But what are some of the like real tangible benefits? Spiritual growth. So it's often seen again as a path to spiritual growth and enlightenment. It can lead to a deeper understanding of yourself, a greater sense of connection with a higher power or consciousness. You can have increased energy, which amazing. So it's a powerful source of energy that can lead to increased vitality and stamina. It can also enhance creativity and productivity.
Stamina.
So you made sure to make it freaky anyway.
I said the word sounded freaky. I'm just saying.
Okay. Improved physical health. I'm so mad at you. Improved physical health. I'm gonna stay on task. Kundalini awakening can help to balance the energy system of the body, leading to improved physical health and well-being. It can also help to alleviate chronic pain and illness. I mean, also just think about like everything that lives in your spine, like from like a biological standpoint, like your nervous system. You getting on my nerves in a good way? Mm-hmm. Waking up your Kundalini energy? I don't know. Was that a mom joke? Whatever. Greater emotional balance. So it can help to balance emotions, leading to greater emotional stability and resilience. It can also help to release emotional blocks and traumas. But again, making sure that you have a therapist is crucial because you can open up something, which is fine, that you need to process, but it's always helpful to have a professional walk you through that. Mm-hmm. And my personal favorite, enhanced intuition. So it can lead to a greater sense of intuition and spiritual insight. It can help individuals to develop their psychic abilities. Come on, psychic development class. And to connect more deeply with your inner wisdom, your gut, your third eye, your intuition, all of these things. So you don't have to think through everything. You can feel through things, which again, thinking and feeling, masculine and feminine, like just getting more into your body.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last episode about how some people struggle with this idea of dropping into their body. This is a way to help with that. All right, yeah. So guys, if you want to get that Kundalini energy moving, you can sign up for a Kundalini yoga class. It's a distinct style of yoga that is all about moving that energy from the base of your spine up to your crown chakra. And it's less about the physicality and kind of the challenging parts of yoga and more on the spiritual aspects. So more breath work, more meditation, more chanting. A lot of things we said earlier.
Yeah, basically, you're probably not going to work up a sweat, which maybe it might be cool for you. Before we go, we do want to remind you to check out chakrasandshotguns.com/readings. So you can book an energy healing session with Mik or a tarot or human design reading with me. Yeah, go check it out.
And finally, guys, if you're loving the show, please subscribe and give us 5 stars wherever you listen.
Namaste.